Hi, welcome to our Ideal Protein presentation. My name is Erin McKimmey and I'm a naturopathic doctor. We've been using Ideal Protein at naturalmedic.com for 2.5 years. Tonight we're going to cover how the program works to help you shed unwanted body fat and improve your overall health. By the end of the presentation, you should have a better idea of whether or not this program is for you. First, we're going to start off with some obesity statistics. These are American stats, however, Canadian stats are quite comparable. For adults, 2 out of every 3 are overweight. For children in Canada and the US, a third are overweight or obese. As a result, way more money is being spent on healthcare for obesity-related diseases. It costs the healthcare system about 40% more to treat people with obesity health-related problems. How does being overweight or obese affect your health? And what sort of medical conditions can you have as a result of being overweight? There's a condition called metabolic syndrome, or Syndrome X. There are 4 hallmark features to this syndrome. The first one is abdominal obesity, having a big belly or gaining all your weight there, high blood sugar levels, high blood pressure or hypertension, and high cholesterol, high triglycerides, and actual low HDL, which is your good cholesterol. If you put these together, it puts you at very high risk for diabetes and for heart disease. What has changed in our diets and our lifestyles to bring this all about? For a while, it was believed that fat in the diet was the biggest problem. So everyone went on a low-fat diet. They started making all these foods and named them low-fat or fat-free foods and led you to believe you could eat these without any problems. Something that was overlooked was the idea of sugar. They had replaced all the fats in the food with extra sugar, and this has turned out to be an even more harmful problem. When we talk about sugar during this presentation, we're talking about carbohydrates. All carbohydrates will eventually break down into sugar in our bodies. Even if you're eating whole grains or brown rice, complex carbs, eventually they will break down into sugar. If we look at the change in sugar consumption over time, in 1905, the average person consumed about 5 pounds of sugar per year. Can you guess how much sugar North Americans ate on average in 2009? This will shock you. It's actually between 150 and 200 pounds of sugar per year. That's a whole person worth of sugar. Compare that to 5 pounds in 1905, that's a huge difference. Now that doesn't mean we're sitting at the table spooning sugar into our mouths. It's because they're adding sugar to everything. If you look on the ingredient list of almost any packaged food, you'll most likely find sugar. Even things that don't necessarily need it, like tomato sauce. This is the source of metabolic syndrome, or Syndrome X. Eating tons of sugar has profoundly negative effects on our metabolism. It causes our pancreas to secrete too much of the hormone insulin. And it's this hyperinsulinemia, high insulin in the blood, that is causing us to gain weight at our bellies, to increase our blood pressure, to increase our cholesterol, and to have high blood sugar. As a result, everyone is developing chronic health problems. It's the first time that the current generation of children will have a shorter lifespan than their parents. A third of U.S. children are expected to develop diabetes, and a quarter of all young people would not qualify to join the Army due to obesity. So why are so many people overweight these days? What has led to this huge surge of overweight children and adults? First, let's consider our eating habits. People are on the run. They're going from work to school to evening activities. People are eating more convenience foods, more fast foods than ever before. Having a sit-down home-cooked meal really isn't the normal anymore. And why spend time cooking anything if you can just go pick it up at the grocery store already made, which also happens to be loaded with extra sugar, salt, fat, and preservatives. As a consequence to our new way of life, our pancreas is taking a beating. It becomes dysfunctional. The pancreas is the organ in our body responsible for secreting the hormone insulin as well as other digestive enzymes. Insulin is secreted every time we eat sugar. And if we eat too much sugar, the pancreas starts secreting too much insulin, which causes a whole host of problems, including telling the body to store excess sugar as fat. So now we're eating all this extra sugar, and yet we don't want it to end up on our bellies, so we need to burn it off using exercise. However, most people spend much of the day sitting at work or at school. And these busy, sedentary lifestyles and poor diet make it so by the end of the day, you only want to go home and sit on the couch, not go to the gym and exercise. Coming back to insulin, yes, we definitely need it to live. It allows sugar to go from our blood into our cells, which fuels our body. But we can only tolerate so much sugar at any given time. And insulin tells the body to store that extra sugar as fat. Also, if we have too much insulin floating around, it can make our blood sugar go too low, which gives us that effect of feeling weak, dizzy, nausea, and also gives us strong cravings for sugar, so then we eat more sugar, getting another sugar high followed by another sugar crash. Our bodies are very particular about where they get energy. There are three main sources: sugar, muscle, and fat. Our body always wants to burn sugar first. It's the easiest for us to burn. So we take the sugar from our blood, and then when that's all gone, we take it from our stored sugars called glycogen, found in the liver and the muscles. And only when all of those sugar stores are exhausted do we finally look at burning fat and at the same time protein from the muscle. When we're on ideal protein, we use this knowledge to our advantage. We cut way down on the carbs or the sugar, so the body has very little sugar to burn, and then we can automatically put our body into protein and fat burning mode. Now, in order to protect our muscles, we have to feed the body the proper amounts of protein at the same time. On a typical low-calorie diet, you'd be eating all normal foods but less of them. So you would lose water weight, you would lose fat, and you would lose lean tissue or your muscles. An example of extreme muscle loss would be when people lose 100 pounds very quickly by just drinking juice or soup, and then you hear about how they have heart failure after that. And then people say it's dangerous to lose weight so quickly. If you look at what they lost with that 100 pounds, some of it will be muscle, and of course our heart is a muscle. And that's the last part of the body you want to be using for fuel. We can't really afford to lose that when we're losing weight. What generally happens when we go on a diet? We lose weight and then we gain it back. Now here's the really bad part of constantly losing weight and gaining it back. So let's say we went on a typical low-calorie diet, we ate less, we lost 20 pounds. Great. Now 10 pounds of that will be fat, and the other 10 pounds is going to be water and muscle. Then, unfortunately, we go back to our old ways. Let's say we regain 20 pounds back, and that's going to be mostly fat with little or no muscle. So now our bodies are actually in worse shape than they were before we were on the diet. We're up 20 pounds of fat where we really only lost 10 pounds of fat in the first place. The rest of it was muscle. And then you have to remember that muscle is very metabolically active. It burns a lot of calories. So losing muscle means you're lowering your metabolism. Now you're fatter than you were before, and your metabolism is actually lower, making it more difficult for you to lose weight in the future. A low-calorie balanced diet means that you're having the same proportions of carbs, fat, and protein, but less of each to create a calorie deficit. So of course you'll lose weight doing this, and some of it will be fat, and some of it will be water, and some of it muscle. You'll also be quite deficient in your essential vitamins and minerals and electrolytes. The ideal protein method is different from this. Yes, we're lowering overall calories, but primarily from reducing them from carbs and fat. Protein we are actually keeping at an optimal level, and this allows us to spare the muscle. So we're losing fat and some water, but not the muscle. We are protecting the muscle. And this is not the case for an overall reduced calorie diet where protein is actually quite deficient. So the overall strategy of ideal protein includes reducing overall calories, but you will maintain vitamins, minerals, and electrolytes through supplementation, and you will maintain muscle by consuming adequate protein from ideal protein products along with 1 serving of meat, fish, or eggs daily. Now people may be thinking, this doesn't look like a lot of food. Won't I be starving on this diet? The answer is no, not really. Women are burning between 2 and 3 pounds a week, which is approximately 10,000 calories of energy. If you divide this over a week, it's about 1,400 calories a day. If you add that to what you're getting on the diet, it totals about 2,200 calories a day, which is a solid amount of fuel, and it's why people aren't hungry and seem to have plenty of energy while they're on the plan. So let's review the benefits of protein. First of all, we've talked about how it prevents muscle loss. And muscle burns a lot of energy, keeping our metabolism up. Plus, the heart is a muscle, something we can't really afford to lose. So really, protein makes up most of the vital parts of our body. Okay, fine, so protein's important, but why can't we just eat animal protein? Why do we have to supplement our protein? There are a few differences. First of all, protein comes from 2 main sources. It comes from eating animal products like meat, fish, and dairy, and it's also quite high in grains and legumes, or beans. If we're getting protein from animal products, they are lower in carbs or sugar, which is definitely what we're trying to avoid on this diet, but it does have some extra fat and some extra calories. So if we look at a steak, 200 calories worth, containing 35 grams of protein, you can absorb about 70% of that. So when you take chewing and digestion into account, you get about 24 grams of protein. And that assumes that you chew your food properly and have good digestive enzymes. If you compare this to an ideal protein product, which is about 95% absorbable, and of a high biological value, meaning it contains all the necessary amino acids required to build your proteins, it's only 100 calories and you get 19 grams of protein. So that's half the calories for almost the same amount of protein. While ideal protein is a very effective weight loss method, it's not a vaccine against regaining the weight. On the plan, we are maintaining our muscle and reducing our sugar intake in order to reset the pancreas. However, if we abruptly stop the diet and return to our old ways of eating, we will eventually regain the weight over time. So our goal is to teach you healthy habits with this plan and allow you to maintain your weight loss for the long term. So if we're trying to keep fat off our body, then it's useful to know how it gets there in the first place. Triglycerides are the main fat storage molecule in the body, and they are made up of 1 glycerol, which is a sugar, and 3 fatty acid chains, which are fats. These molecules fill up our fatty tissue, or our adipose tissue. And of course, it's insulin. Insulin is the hormone that actually enables fat storage into our fat cells. You might be looking at your food and asking yourself, what is this? Is this a carb? Is this a fat? Or is this a protein? Carbs can be simple sugars or complex starches. Simple things would include candies, fruits, and cakes. Complex things would include whole grains, potatoes, or beans. Fats can be either plant fats or animal fats. So plant fats would be your vegetable oils like olive oil, corn oil, and animal fats would be your meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. Protein, again, can be either plant-based or animal-based. So plant-based proteins include grains and legumes, and animal-based proteins would be your meat, eggs, and dairy. If stored fat or triglycerides are made up of sugar and 3 fats, then it makes sense that you don't want to combine those two food groups. The solution to not regaining all the weight that you so painstakingly lost is to not eat carby foods at the same time as fatty foods. You can always have protein with carbs or fat, you just want to keep your carbs and your fat not together. So if you take a look at all the worst possible foods to eat, they're usually a combination of carbs and fats. If you think about pizza, it's your fatty cheese with your fatty pepperoni on your carby crust. Ice cream, so lots of sugar mixed with cream. So this simple idea allows you to maintain your weight loss. So if you're going to have a fat for lunch, like a salad with cheese and a creamy dressing and salmon, then you don't want to also have bread or croutons with that. If you're going to have a starch like pasta for dinner, then you want to have a red sauce, not a fatty Alfredo sauce. This makes it much more difficult for your body to store fat. Well, that concludes our ideal protein presentation. I hope you learned something new. Just a quick review. The plan involves keeping protein at a healthy level while reducing carbs and fat, which puts our body into fat-burning mode, but we maintain our muscle mass while we lose weight, and we correct many of the problems caused by having too much sugar or too much carbs, like Syndrome X or metabolic syndrome. If you're interested in learning more about the diet, I encourage you to visit trantiendiet.com. That's TRANTIEN diet.com. Dr. Tran has published a free PDF book that you can read over that will explain the plan in more detail so you can understand how and why it works. Thank you for joining me. Have a good night.